Andrew, for bringing us to a whole new level of enthusiasm. So.
Is that what that was?
Something.
So we start now at Act 3, Scene 2. It is a split scene. Lewis and Belize are in a coffee shop. Pryor is at the outpatient clinic at the hospital with Emily, the nurse, and she has him on an IV drip. Lewis, start pontificating.
Why is democracy succeeded in America? Of course, by succeeded, I mean comparatively, not literally, not in the present, but what makes for the prospect of some sort of radical democracy spreading outward and growing up. Why does the power that was once so carefully preserved at the top of the pyramid by the original framers of the Constitution seem drawn inexorably downward and outward, in spite of the best effort of the right to stop this? I mean, it's the really hard thing about the left in this country. The American left can't help but trip all over all these petrified little fetishes. Freedom, that's the worst. You know, Jean Kirkpatrick, for God's sake, will go on about freedom. And so what does that mean, the word freedom? When she talks about it, or human rights, you have Bush talking about human rights. And so what are these people talking about? They might as well be talking about the mating habit of Venusians. These people don't begin to know what ontologically freedom is or human rights, like they see these bourgeois property-based rights of man type rights. But that's not enfranchisement, not democracy, not what's implicit, what's potential within the idea, not the idea with blood in it. That's just liberalism, the worst kind of liberalism, really bourgeois tolerance. And what I think is what age has shown us is the limits of tolerance. That's not enough to be tolerant, because when the shit hits the fan and you find out how much tolerance it's worth, nothing. And underneath all the tolerance is intense, passionate hatred.
Uh-huh.
Well, don't you think that's true?
Uh-huh, it is.
Power is the object, not being tolerated. Fuck assimilation. But I mean, in spite of all this, the thing about America, I think, is that ultimately we're different from every other nation on earth, in that with people here of every race, we can't, ultimately what defines us isn't race, but politics. Not like any European country where there's an insurmountable fact of a kind of racial or ethnic monopoly or monolith, like all Dutchmen. I mean, Dutch people are, well, Dutch, and the Jews of Europe were never Europeans, just a small problem facing the monolith. But here there are so many small problems, it's really just a collection of small problems. The monolith is missing. Oh, I mean, of course, I suppose there's the monolith of white Americans, white straight male America.
Which is not unimpressive, even among monoliths.
Well, no, but when the race thing gets taken care of, and I don't mean to minimalize how major it is, I mean, I know it is. This is a really, really incredibly racist country. But it's like, well, the British, I mean, all these blue-eyed pink people, and it's just weird, you know what I mean? I'm not all that Jewish looking, or, well, maybe I am, but you know, in New York, everyone is, well, not everyone, but so many are. But in England, in London, I walk into bars and I feel like Sid the Yid. You know what I mean? Like Woody Allen in Annie Hall with the payas and the gabardine coat, like never, never anywhere so much. I mean, not actively despised, not like they're Germans, who I think are still terribly anti-Semitic and racist too. I mean black racist. They pretend otherwise, but anyway, in London, there's just, and at one point I met this black gay guy from Jamaica who talked with a lilt, but he said his family had been living in London since before the Civil War, the American one, and how the English never let him forget for a minute that he wasn't blue-eyed and pink. And I said, yeah, me too. These people are anti-Semites. And he said, yeah, but the British Jews have the clothing business all sewed up, and blacks there can't get a foothold. And it was an incredibly awkward moment of just, I mean, here we were in this bar that was gay, but it was a pub, you know, the beams and the plaster and those horrible little like 2-day-old fish egg sandwiches, and just so British, so old. And I felt, well, there's no way out of this because of us right now, too much immersed in this history. Hope is dissolved in the sheer age of this place, where race is what counts and there's no real hope of change. It's the racial destiny of the Brits that matters to them, not their political destiny. Whereas in America,
Here in America, race doesn't count.
no, that's not, I mean, you can't be hearing that. It's, look, race, yes, but ultimately race here is a political question, right? Racists just try to use race here as a tool in a political struggle. It's not really about race. Like the spiritualists try to use that stuff. Are you enlightened? Are you centered, channeled? Whatever this reaching out for a spiritual past in a country where no indigenous spirits exist, only the Indians, I mean Native American spirits, and we kill them off. So now there are no gods, no ghosts and spirits in America. There are no angels in America, no spiritual past, no racial past. There's only the political and the decoys and the ploys to maneuver around the inescapable paddle of politics, the shifting downwards and the outwards of political power to the people.
Power to the people. Amen. Oh my goodness. Will you look at the time? I gotta.
Do you think this is what, racist or naive or something?
Well, it's certainly something. Look, I just remembered I have an appointment.
What? I mean, I really don't want to like speak from some position of privilege, and
I'm sitting here thinking eventually he's got to run out of steam. So I let you rattle on and on saying about maybe 7 or 8 things I find really offensive.
what?
But you know, Lewis, and I know the guilt fueling this particular tirade is obviously already swollen bigger than your hemorrhoids.
I don't have hemorrhoids.
I hear different. May I finish?
Yes, but I don't have hemorrhoids.
So finally, when
Pryor told you he's an asshole. He shouldn't have.
you promised, Lewis, Pryor is not the subject.
You brought him up,
I brought up hemorrhoids.
so it's indirect, passive aggressive.
Unlike, I suppose, banging me over the head with your theory that America doesn't have a race problem.
Oh, be fair, I never said that.
Well, not exactly, but
I said,
it was close enough, because if it had been that blunt, I'd have just walked out and
you deliberately misinterpreted.
stop interrupting. I haven't been able to.
Just let me.
No, what? Talk? You've been running your mouth nonstop since I got here. Yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Up
Well,
the hill,
you
down the
could
hill,
have joined
playing with
at
your
any,
monolith.
you could have joined at any time instead of.
And Lewis, it is truly an awesome spectacle, but I got better things to do with my time than sit here listening to this racist bullshit just because I feel sorry for you that.
I'm not a racist.
Oh, come on.
So maybe I am a racist.
Oh, I really hate that. It's no fun picking on you, Lewis. You're so guilty. It's just like throwing darts at a blob of jello.
I
There's no
just think
satisfying hits, just quivering. The darts just blop in and vanish.
I just think when you're discussing lines of oppression, it gets very complicated. And
Oh, is that a fact? You know, we Black drag queens have a rather intimate knowledge of the complexity of the lines of
Ex-black drag queen?
actually XX.
You're doing drag again?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't have to tell you. Maybe.
I think it's sexist.
I didn't ask you.
Well, it is. The gay community, I think, has to adopt the same attitude towards drag as a black women have to take towards black women blues singers.
Oh my, we are walking dangerous tonight.
Well, it's all internalized depression, right? I mean, the masochism, the stereotypes, the
Louis, are you deliberately trying to make me hate you?
no,
I mean, are you deliberately transforming yourself into an arrogant, sexual, political, Stalinist / racist, flag-waving thug for my benefit?
you know what I think?
What?
You hate me because I'm a Jew.
I'm leaving.
It's true.
You have no basis except your, Louis, it's good to know you haven't changed. You're still an honorary citizen of the Twilight Zone. And after your pale white polemics on behalf of racial insensitivity, you have a flaming fuck of a lot of nerve calling me an anti-Semite. Now I really gotta go.
You called me Lou the Jew.
That was a joke.
I didn't think it was funny. It was hostile.
It was 3 years ago.
So
You just called yourself Sid the Yid.
that's not the same thing.
Sid the Yid is different from Lou the Jew.
Yes,
Someday you'll have to explain that to me. But right now, you hate me because you hate Black people.
I do not. But I do think most black people are anti-Semitic.
Most Black people, that's racist, Louis. And I think most Jews,
Louis Farrakhan,
Ed Koch,
Jesse Jackson,
Jackson. Oh, really? Louis, this is,
Hymietown.
Louis, you voted for Jesse Jackson. You sent checks to the Rainbow Coalition.
I'm ambivalent. The checks bounce.
All your checks bounce, Louis. You're ambivalent about everything.
What's that supposed to
You
mean?
may be dumber than shit, but I refuse to believe you can't figure it out. Try.
I was never ambivalent about Pryor. I love him. I do. I really do.
Nobody said different.
Love and ambivalence are, real love isn't ambivalent.
Real love isn't ambivalent. I'd swear that's a line from my favorite best-selling paperback novel, In Love with the Night Mysterious, except I don't think you ever read it.
I never read it. No.
You ought to. Instead of spending the rest of your life trying to get through democracy in America, it's about this white woman whose daddy owns a plantation in the Deep South in the years before the Civil War, the American one. And her name is Margaret, and she's in love with her daddy's #1 slave, and his name is Thaddeus. And she's married, but her white slave owner husband has AIDS, antebellum insufficiently developed sex organs. And there's a lot of hot stuff going on down when Margaret and Thaddeus can catch a spare torrid 10 under the cotton-picking moon. And then, of course, the Yankees come, and they set the slaves free. And the slaves string up old daddy, and so on. Historical fiction. Somewhere in there, I recall, Margaret and Thaddeus find the time to discuss the nature of love. Her face is reflecting the flames of the burning plantation. You know, the way white people do. And his black face is dark in the night. And she says to him, Thaddeus, real love isn't ever ambivalent.
There is a pause. Emily enters and turns off the IV drip.
Thaddeus looks at her. He's contemplating her thesis, and he isn't sure he agrees.
Carolyn, you're on mute.
Treatment number 4.
Pharmaceutical miracle. Lazarus breathes again.
Is he? How bad is he?
You want the laundry list?
Shirt off. Let's check the.
There's a weight problem and the shit problem and the morale problem.
Only 6. That's good. Pants?
And he thinks he's going crazy.
Looking good. What else?
Ankles sore and swollen, but the legs better. The nausea's mostly gone with the little orange pills. BM's pure liquid, but not bloody anymore for now. My eye doctor says everything's okay for now. My dentist says yuck when he sees my fuzzy tongue, and now he wears little condoms on his thumb and forefinger and a mask. So what? My dermatologist is in Hawaii, and my mother, well, leave my mother out of it, which is usually where my mother is, out of it. My glands are like walnuts. My weight's holding steady for week 2. And a friend died 2 days ago of bird tuberculosis. Bird tuberculosis. That scared me. And I didn't go to the funeral today because he was an Irish Catholic and it's probably open casket. And I'm afraid of something, the bird TB or seeing him or. So I guess I'm doing okay. Except for, of course, I'm going nuts.
We can run the toxoplasmosis series, and there's no indication.
I know, but I feel like something terrifying is on its way, you know, like a missile from outer space, and it's plummeting down towards the Earth, and I'm ground zero. And I am generally known where I am known as one cool, collected queen, and I am ruffled.
There's really nothing to worry about. I think that shochein bamromim mamse menuchach nechona tachat kanfei hashechina.
What?
Everything's fine. B'ma'alot kedushim utchorim kezohar chorakia mazchirim.
Oh, I don't understand what you're saying.
Et nishmat prior shehalach leolamo ba'ovur shenodvo zeduka be'ad haskorat nishmoto.
Why are you doing that? Stop it.
Stop what?
Weren't you just speaking in Hebrew or something?
Hebrew? I'm basically Italian American. No, I didn't speak in Hebrew.
Oh no. Oh God, please. I really think
Look, I'm sorry. I have a waiting room full of, I think you're one of the lucky ones. You'll live for years. Probably. You're pretty healthy for someone with no immune system. Are you seeing someone? Loneliness is a danger. A therapist?
No, I don't need to see anyone.
Well, think about it. You aren't going crazy. You're just under a lot of stress. No wonder.
Suddenly, there is an astonishing blaze of light, a huge chord sounded by a gigantic choir, and a great book with steel pages mounted atop a molten red pillar pops up from the stage floor. The book opens. There is a large Aleph inscribed on its pages, which bursts into flames. Immediately, the book slams shut and disappears instantly under the floor as the lights become normal again. Emily notices none of this, writing in her chart. Pryor is agog.
Hebrew.
Pryor flees.
Help me.
I beg your pardon?
Louis, you're a nurse. Give me something. I don't know what to do anymore. Last week at work, I screwed up the Xerox machine, like permanently. And so then I tripped on the subway steps and my glasses broke and I cut my forehead here. See? And now I can't see much and my forehead, it's like the mark of Cain. Stupid, right? But it won't heal. And every morning I see it and I think biblical things. Mark of Cain, Judas Iscariot, and his silver and his noose. People who, in betraying what they love, betray what's truest in themselves. I feel nothing but cold for myself, just cold. And every night I miss him. I miss him so much. But then those sores and the smell and where I thought I was going. I could be sick too. Maybe I'm sick too. I don't know. Please tell him I love him. Can you do that?
I've thought about it for a very long time, and I still don't understand what love is. Justice is simple. Democracy is simple. Those things are unambivalent, but love is very hard. And it goes bad for you if you violate the hard law of love.
I'm dying.
He's dying. You just wish you were. Oh, cheer up, Lewis. Look at that heavy sky out there.
Purple.
Purple? Boy, what kind of a homosexual are you anyway? That's not purple, Mary. That color up there is mauve. All day today, it's felt like Thanksgiving. Soon, this ruination will be blanketed white. You can smell it. Can you smell it?
Smell what?
Softness, compliance, forgiveness, grace.
No.
I can't help you learn that. I can't help you, Lewis. You're not my business.
Ow, fuck. Huh? Snow?
Scene 3, same day. Harper in a very white, cold place with a brilliant blue sky above, a delicate snowfall. She is dressed in a beautiful snowsuit. The sound of the sea is faint in the background.
Snow, ice, mountains of ice. Where am I? I feel better. I do. I feel better. There are ice crystals in my lungs, wonderful and sharp, and the snow smells like cold, crushed peaches. And there's some current of blood in the wind. How strange. It has that iron taste.
Ozone,
Ozone. Wow. Where am I?
the kingdom of ice, the bottommost part of the world.
Antarctica. This is Antarctica.
Cold shelter for the shattered. No sorrow here. Tears freeze.
Antarctica. Antarctica. Oh boy, look at this. Wow. I must have really snapped the tether, huh?
Apparently,
That's great. I want to stay here forever. Set up camp. Build things. Build a city. An enormous city made up of frontier forts, dark wood and green roofs, and high gates made of pointed logs and bonfires burning on every street corner. I should build by a river. Where are the forests?
no timber here. Too cold. No trees, ice.
Oh, details. I'm sick of details. I'll plant them and grow them. I'll live off caribou fat. I'll melt it over the bonfires and drink it from long, curved goat horn cups. It'll be great. I want to make a new world here so that I never have to go home again.
As long as it lasts. Ice has a way of melting.
No, forever. I can have anything I want here. Maybe even companionship. Someone who has desire for me. You maybe.
No. It's against the bylaws of the International Order of Travel Agents to get involved with clients. Rules are rules. Anyway, I'm not the one you really want.
There isn't anyone, maybe an Eskimo, who could ice fish for food and help me build a nest for when the baby comes.
There are no Eskimo in Antarctica, and you're not really pregnant. You made that up.
Well, all of this is made up. So if the snow feels cold, I'm pregnant, right? Here I can be pregnant, and I can have any kind of baby I want.
This is a retreat, a vacuum. Its virtue is that it lacks everything. Deep freeze for feelings, You can be numb and safe here. That's what you came for. Respect the delicate ecology of your delusions.
You mean like no Eskimo in Antarctica?
Correcto. Ice and snow. No Eskimo. Even hallucinations have laws.
Well, then who's that?
The Eskimo appears.
An Eskimo.
An Antarctic Eskimo, a fisher of the polar deep.
There's something wrong with this picture.
The Eskimo beckons to Harper.
I'm going to like this place. It's my own National Geographic special. Oh. She holds her stomach. I think I felt her kicking. Maybe I'll give birth to a baby covered with thick white fur, and that way she won't be cold. My breasts will be full of hot cocoa so she doesn't get chilly. And if it gets really cold, she'll have a pouch I can crawl into, like a marsupial. We'll mend together. That's what we'll do. We'll mend.
Scene 4, same day. An abandoned lot in the South Bronx. A homeless woman is standing near an oil drum in which a fire is burning. Snowfall, trash around. Hannah Pitt enters, dragging 2 heavy suitcases.
Whoops. Excuse me. I said, excuse me, can you tell me where I am? Is this Brooklyn? Do you know a Pineapple Street? Is there some sort of a bus or train or I'm lost. I just arrived from Salt Lake City, Utah. I got the bus that I was told to take and I got off. Well, it was the very last stop, so I had to get off. And I asked the driver, was this Brooklyn? And he nodded yes. But he was from one of those foreign countries where they think it's good manners to nod at everything, even if you have no idea what you're nodding at. And in truth, I think he spoke no English at all, which I would think make him ineligible for employment on public transportation. The public being English speaking mostly. Do you speak English? I was supposed to be met at the airport by my son. He didn't show, and I don't wait more than 3 3/4 hours for anyone. I should have been patient, I guess. Is this
Bronx?
Is that the Bronx? Well, how in the name of heaven did I get to the Bronx when the bus driver said,
Slurp, slurp, slurp. Will you stop that disgusting slurping? You disgusting slurping, feeding animal. Feeding yourself, just feeding yourself. What would it matter to you or to anyone if you just stopped feeding and died?
can you just tell me where
Why was Kushner Bridge named after a Polak?
I don't know what
That was a joke.
well, what's the punchline?
I don't know.
Oh, for Pete's sake, is there anyone else who,
Stand further off, you fat, loathsome whore. You can't have any more of this soup. Slurp, 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 you animal. And I know you'll just go pee it all away. And where will you do that? Behind what bush? It's fucking cold out there. And oh, that's right, because it was supposed to have been a tunnel. That's not very funny. Have you read the prophecies of Nostradamus?
who?
Some guy I went out with once, somewhere. Nostradamus, prophet, outcast, eyes like scary shit.
Shut up, please. Now I want you to stop jabbering for a minute and pull your wits together and tell me how to get to Brooklyn. Because, are you going to tell me? Because there's no one else around here to tell me, and I'm wet and cold and I'm very angry. I'm sorry you're so psychotic, but just make the effort. Take a deep breath, do it. That's good. Now exhale. Good.
Don't,
Now, how do I get to Brooklyn?
don't know. Never been. Sorry. Want some soup?
Manhattan? Maybe you know. I don't suppose you know the location of the Mormon visitors.
65th and Broadway.
How do you?
Go there all the time. Free movies. Boring, but you can stay all day.
Well, so how do I?
Take the D train. Next block, make a right.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. In the new century, I think we will all be insane.
Scene 5. Same day. Joe and Roy in the study of Roy's brownstone. Roy is wearing an elegant bathrobe. He has made a considerable effort to look well. He isn't well, and he hasn't succeeded much in looking it.
I can't. The answer's no. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, apologies. I can't see that there's anyone asking for apologies.
I'm sorry, Roy.
Oh, well, apologies.
My wife is missing, Roy. My mother's coming from Salt Lake to help look, I guess. I'm supposed to be at the airport now, picking her up, but I just spent 2 days in a hospital, Roy, with a bleeding ulcer. I was spitting up blood.
Blood, huh? Look, I'm very busy here, and
It's just a job.
a job. A job? Washington, dumb Utah Mormon hick shit.
Roy?
Washington. When Washington called me, I was younger than you. You think I said, oh, fuck no, I can't go. I got 2 fingers up my asshole and a little moral nosebleed to boot. When Washington calls you, my pretty young punk friend, you go, or you can go fuck yourself sideways. Because the train is pulled out of the station and you are out, nowhere, in the cold, out in the cold. Fuck you, Mary Jane, get out of here.
Just let me...
Explain, ephemera. You broke my heart. Explain that. Explain that.
I love you, Roy. There's so much that I want to be. What you see in me, I want to be a participant in the world, in your world. Roy, I want to be capable of that. I've tried, really I have, but I can't do this. Not because I don't believe in you, but because I believe in you so much, in what you stand for at heart, the order, the decency. I would give anything to protect you, but there are laws I can't break. It's too ingrained. It's not me. There's enough damage I've already done. Maybe you were right. Maybe I'm dead.
You're not dead, boy. You're a sissy. You love me. That's moving. I'm moved. It's nice to be loved. I warned you about her, didn't I, Joe? But you don't listen to me. Why? Because you say Roy is smart and Roy's a friend, but Roy, well, he isn't nice. And you want to be nice. You want to be nice, right? A nice man. You know what my greatest accomplishment was, Joe? In my life, what I'm able to look back on and be proudest of? And I've helped make presidents and unmake them, and mayors and more goddamn judges than anyone in New York City ever. And several $1 million tax-free. And what do you think means the most to me? You ever hear of Ethel Rosenberg, huh, Joe? Huh?
Well, yeah, I guess yeah.
Yeah. You have heard of Ethel Rosenberg, yes. Maybe even read about her in the history books. If it wasn't for me, Joe, Ethel Rosenberg would be alive today, writing some personal advice column for Ms. Magazine. She isn't. Because during the trial, Joe, I was on the phone every day talking with the judge.
Roy.
Every day doing what I do best. Talking on the telephone, making sure that timid Yid Nebish on the bench did his duty to America, to history, that sweet, unprepossessing woman, 2 kids, boo-hoo-hoo, reminded us all of our little Jewish mamas. She came this close to getting life. I pleaded till I wept to put her in the chair. Me, I did that. I would have fucking pulled the switch if they'd have let me. Why? Because I fucking hate traitors. Because I fucking hate communists. Was it legal? Fuck legal. Am I a nice man? Fuck nice. They say terrible things about me in the nation. Fuck the nation. You want to be nice or you want to be effective? Make the law or subject to it? Choose. Your wife chose. A week from today, she'll be back. She knows how to get what she wants. Maybe I ought to send her to Washington.
I don't believe you.
Gospel.
You can't possibly mean what you're saying. Roy, you were the assistant United States attorney on the Rosenberg case. Ex parte communication with the judge during the trial would be censurable, at least. Probably conspiracy, and in a case that resulted in execution, it's...
What, murder?
You're not well is all.
What do you mean not well? Who's not well?
You said...
No, I didn't. I said what?
Roy, you have cancer.
No, I don't.
You told me you were dying.
What the fuck are you talking about, Joe? I never said that. I'm in perfect health. There's not a goddamn thing wrong with me. Shake?
Joe hesitates. He holds out his hand to Roy. Roy pulls Joe into a strong, close clinch.
It's okay that you hurt me because I love you, baby Joe. That's why I'm so rough on you.
Roy releases Joe. Joe backs away a step or two.
Prodigal son, the world will wipe its dirty hands all over you.
It already has, Roy.
Now go.
Roy shoves Joe hard. Joe turns to leave. Roy stops him, turns him around.
I'll always be here, waiting for you.
Then again, with sudden violence, he pulls Joe close.
What did you want from me? What was all this? What do you want, treacherous, ungrateful little...
Joe is very close to belting Roy, grabs him by the front of his robe, and propels him across the length of the room. He holds Roy at arm's length, the other arm ready to hit.
Transgress a little, Joseph.
Joe releases Roy.
There's so many laws. Find one you can break.
Joe hesitates, then leaves, backing out. When Joe has gone, Roy doubles over in great pain.
Oh, Christ. Andy, get in here, Andy.
The door opens, but it isn't Andy. A small Jewish woman, dressed modestly in a 50s hat and coat, stands in the doorway. The room darkens.
Who the fuck are you? The new nurse?
The figure in the doorway says nothing. She stares at Roy. Roy looks at her carefully, gets up, crosses to her. He crosses back to the chair and sits heavily.
Oh, fuck. Ethel?
You look so good, Roy.
Well, Ethel, I don't feel good.
But you lost a lot of weight. That suits you. You were heavy back then. Softic, mid-hips.
I haven't been that heavy since 1960. We were all heavier back then before the body thing started. Now I look like a skeleton. They stare.
The shit's really hit the fan, huh, Roy? Well, the fun's just started.
What is this, Ethel? Halloween? You trying to scare me? Well, you're wasting your time. I'm scarier than you any day of the week, so beat it, Ethel. Boo! Better dead than red. Somebody trying to shake me up? Ha ha! From the throne of God in heaven to the belly of hell, you can all fuck yourselves and then go jump in the lake. Because I'm not afraid of you or death or hell or anything.
Be seeing you soon, Roy. Julius sends his regards.
Yeah? Well, send this to Julius.
He
You're very
stands
sick.
and moves towards her. Halfway across the room, he thumps to the floor, breathing laboriously in pain.
You're a very sick man, Roy.
Oh, God, Andy!
He doesn't hear you, I guess. We should call the ambulance. Ha! Buttons. Such things they've got now. What do I dial, Roy?
911.
It sings. La la la. Huh. Yes, you should please send an ambulance to the home of Mr. Roy Cohn, the famous lawyer. What's the address, Roy?
244 East 87th.
244 East 87th Street. No apartment number. He's got the whole building. My name? Ethel Greenglass Rosenberg. Me? No, I'm not related to Mr. Cohn. An old friend. They said a minute.
I have all the time in the world.
You're immortal.
I'm immortal, Ethel.
He forces himself to stand.
I have forced my way into history. I ain't never gonna die.
History is about to crack wide open. Millennium approaches.
Scene 6, late that night, Pryor's bedroom. Pryor 1 watching Pryor in bed, who is staring back at him, terrified. Tonight, Pryor 1 is dressed in weird alchemical robes and hat over his historical clothing, and he carries a long palm leaf bundle.
Tonight's the night, aren't you excited? Tonight she arrives right through the roof. Ha'adam, Hagadol.
Lumen, phosphor, floor, candle, and an unending billowing of scarlet and
Look, garlic, a mirror, holy water, a crucifix. Fuck off! Get the fuck out of my room! Go!
Odd as a hickory knob, I'll bet.
we all to mess when they approach. We wax full like moons.
Dance.
Dance.
Stand up, damn it, give us your hands, dance.
Listen!
A lone oboe begins to play a little dance tune.
Delightful sound. Care to dance?
Please leave me alone. Please just let me sleep.
Ah, he wants someone familiar, a partner who knows his steps. Close your eyes. Imagine.
I don't.
Hush. Close your eyes. Now open them.
Pryor does. Lewis appears. He looks gorgeous. The music builds gradually into a full-blooded romantic dance tune.
Lou. Lou.
Martin, you're muted.
Martin?
Dance with me.
I can't. My leg, it hurts at night. Are you a ghost, Lou?
No, just spectral, lost to myself, sitting all day on a cold park benches, wishing I could be with you. Dance with me, babe.
Pryor stands up. The leg stops hurting. They begin to dance. The music is beautiful.
Ah, now I see why he's got no children. He's a sodomite.
Oh, be quiet, you medieval gnome, and let them dance.
I'm not interfering. I've done my bit. Hooray, hooray, the messengers come. Now I'm blowing off. I don't like it here.
The 20th century, oh dear, the world has gotten so terribly, terribly old.
Lewis and Pryor waltz happily. Lights fade back to normal. Lewis vanishes. Pryor dances alone. Then suddenly, the sound of wings fills the entire room. Scene 7, split scene. Pryor alone in his apartment. Lewis alone in the park. Again, a sound of beating wings.
Oh, don't come in here. Don't come in. Lewis! No, my name is Pryor Walter. I am the scion of an ancient line. I am abandoned. No, my name is Pryor, and I live here and now. And in the dark, the recording angel opens its 100 eyes and snaps the spine of the book of life. And hush, hush. I'm talking nonsense. No more mad scene. Hush, hush.
Lewis in the park on a bench. Joe approaches, stands at a distance. They stare at each other, then Lewis turns away.
You know the story of Lazarus?
Lazarus?
Lazarus. I can't remember what happens exactly.
I don't. Well, he was dead, Lazarus, and Jesus breathed life into him. He brought him back from death.
Come here often?
No. Yes. Yes.
Back from the dead. You believe that really happened?
I don't know anymore what I believe.
This is quite a coincidence, us meeting.
I followed you from work. I followed you here.
You followed me? You probably saw me that day in the washroom and thought, there's a sweet guy, sensitive, cries for friends in trouble.
Yes.
You thought maybe I'll cry for you?
Yes.
Well, I fooled you. What are you doing? Don't do that.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm just not. I think if you touch me, your hand might fall off or something. Worse things have happened to people who have touched me.
Please. Oh boy. Can I want to touch you. Can I please just touch you here? I'm going to hell for doing this.
Big deal. You think it could be any worse than New York City?
Lewis puts his hand on Joe's hand. He takes Joe's hands away from his face, holds it for a moment. Martin.
It's Joe, isn't it?
No, it's you. You say, come on.
Sorry. Come on.
Where?
Home with me.
This makes no sense. I mean, I don't know you.
Likewise.
And what do you know about me you don't like?
The Republican stuff?
Yeah, well, for starters.
I don't like that. I hate that.
So why on earth should we?
Lewis goes to Joe and kisses him full on the mouth.
Strange bedfellows. I don't know. I never made it with one of the damn before. I would really rather not have to spend the night alone.
I'm a pretty terrible person, Lewis.
Lou.
No, I really, really am. I don't think I deserve being loved.
There, you see, we already have a lot in common.
Lewis stands, begins to walk away. He turns, looks back at Joe. Joe follows, they exit. Pryor is listening. At first, there is no sound. Then once again, the sound of beating wings, frighteningly near.
That sound, what is that? Like birds or something? Like a really big bird. I'm frightened. No fear. Find the anger, my blood is clean. My brain is fine. I can handle pressure. I am a gay man and I am used to pressure, to trouble. I am tough and strong and, oh my goodness. I'm hot. Oh, geez, what is going on here? I must have a fever.
The bedside lamp flickers wildly as the bed begins to roll forward and back. There is a deep bass creaking and groaning from the bedroom ceiling, like the timbers of a ship under intense stress, and from above, a fine rain of plaster dust.
Oh, please, something's coming in here. I'm scared. I don't like this at all. Something's approaching and
There is a great blaze of triumphal music, heralding. The light turns an extraordinary harsh, cold, pale blue, then a rich, brilliant, warm golden color, then a hot, bilious green, and then finally a spectacular royal purple, then silence.
God almighty. Very Steven Spielberg.
Sound like a plummeting meteor tears down from very, very far above the earth, hurtling at an incredible velocity towards the bedroom. The light seems to be sucked out of the room as the projectile approaches. As the room reaches darkness, we hear a terrifying crash as something immense strikes earth. The whole building shudders, and a part of the bedroom ceiling, lots of plaster and lath and wiring, crashes to the floor. And then, in a shower of unearthly white light, spreading great opalescent gray silver wings, the angel descends into the room and floats above Pryor's bed. Greetings, prophet. The great work begins. The messenger has arrived. End of play. All right, everybody. Let's hear it for our readers. Woo-hoo! So, here's what we're going to talk about first, which is the use of the Hebrew in the play. And I'm just going to point out a couple of things and then let Rabbi Benioff take it. So, when last we left, in the right at the very end of our prior reading, as it were, our prior reading, Rabbi Benioff was starting to talk about the use of the Hebrew that is being done simultaneously between prior 1 and prior 2, and essentially where it comes from. And she had mentioned to all of us that she had tried to get in contact with her Zohar teacher who hadn't gotten back to her, but by now the Zohar teacher has. So we start out with this Hebrew that is a bit confusing, as we may recall from last time. And Rabbi Benioff is going to talk to us about that. And then in this scene, when we start this time, after we get through Lewis's and Belize's polemical debate, which is pretty devoid of any kind of, I would say, spirituality or Rahmanis in terms of kindness, we get Emily the nurse, who starts speaking in Hebrew to Pryor. And for those of you who have the page in front of you, I'm referencing page 104, which is, as I said, in the first scene that we read tonight. And as Carolyn Mandel read, she starts with everything's fine, and then she says, B'machalot kedoshim udhorim. This is the beginning of El Malei Rachamim. And the significance of El Malei Rachamim is that, and then she says it, she continues with the prayer and even names Pryor in terms of what you say for somebody who has died. And El Malei is really the prayer about God's love. And it is full of, just like the third word, Rachamim, Rahmanis. And the prayer is used and said at a time after somebody has died, and you say it in remembrance of somebody. And essentially, it's asking that the person who has died be wrapped up in the wings of the Shekhinah, be wrapped up in the wings of love and Rahmanas. So we see here Emily saying that to Pryor right here at a time when, and I think this is a very interesting thing, Emily doesn't even realize she's doing it, right? She says, I'm Italian, Hebrew, what are you talking about? But as we can see from her character, she is full of love and kindness for those people that she's treating. So Emily is exemplifying Rahmanas, and the priors are referencing something else. I'm not quite sure what, and I think that Rabbi Julie will elucidate that for us a little bit. And then we get to Ethel Rosenberg, okay, who appears as, I would say at that moment, because this is what Roy says, the quintessential Jewish mother, right? Has the essential line of, oh, Roy, the fun is just beginning for you. So we should notice that Pryor, who is facing death, is getting El Malay Rachamim. Roy, the scumbag, if I do say so myself, isn't getting anything at all along those lines. And then right at the end, before the angel comes, we once again get the priors, right? And the priors reference again this sort of crazy, almost magical, mystical alchemy, because saying alchemical is a very hard word to say, sort of stuff again with Prior 1 saying Ha-Adam Ha-Gadol, and Prior 2 appearing and saying once again, lumen phosphor. So we see lots of stuff with light. We see lots of stuff here with the use of Hebrew. And before I leave it, the flaming Aleph. Okay, so let's remember that that flaming Aleph was in the scene with Emily. And what do we know about the letter Aleph? It's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Okay, and I will probably have other things to say on this, but at this moment, I would like for Rabbi Julie to intersect and go for it.
All right. And Emily, if you want me to like go in a different way, just say, no, don't do this, or I'm happy to be conducted here.
Well, okay, you start and I'll read the stage directions.
There you go. Okay, perfect. So the first thing I think I wanted to do is just share what my Zohar teacher had to say about this text that we were looking at last time and that reappears this week. And I felt good that I wasn't too far off. So he said, if it's okay, I'm just going to read it to you. He says, it's hard to know what Kushner was aiming at exactly or what he'd been reading. It's hard to know, too, if this is intended to be a sequence or just a list of Kabbalistic terms. So I'll throw out some thoughts about what's here. So in the first time we saw it, there was a doubling of God's name. It said Adonai, Adonai. And he said the doubling of God's names could suggest upper and lower realms within the Godhead. I'll try to translate this. Adonai is the way in which we vocalize the ineffable Yud-He, Vav-He. And every time we read the four-letter name of God with our eyes, while saying something different with our lips, so we say Adonai even though we're reading Yud-He, Vav-He, we are vocalizing the union of transcendent and immanent. And then he goes in to talk about this idea of Olam HaYichud, is this upper world, where this world of unification with all of the sphirot, these emanations of God. And it's in contrast to this lower world of the world of separation. And then he said this word zazahut. He spelled it zazahot. He says it sahot. No, sa. Anyway, it means gleams or glimmers. And it's a term in some Kabbalistic works that often refers to the sphirot, those emanations of God. But they're actually ones that are above the sphirot. Like there's actually a higher level of sphirot hanging out above Keter, the highest one. And he says he agrees with me that there's this thing called Ha'adam Hagadol, that's referring to this Adam Kadmon and this Adam Elyon, this divine, he calls it anthropos, so this humanized vision of God. And he says the question is, what role do these Kabbalistic terms play in the script? And he looked for a lot of them in Sefaria, a tool online. It didn't turn anything up. He thinks it may be coming from a text, but he couldn't find it. He said, regarding the forms of light, light is the primary metaphor in Kabbalah and in other mysticisms for depicting divine energy and blessing. And using light from other languages simply broadens and universalizes the light. And then there's this reference also to a daughter, and he says, I have to assume that it's talking about Shekhinah, who is the daughter par excellence in Kabbalah. And the daughter, this Shekhinah, is the feminine indwelling presence of God. So I thought that was kind of cool. That made me think of, well, I feel like there's so many places I can go. Do you want me to talk about the Mormon stuff I learned here? You're muted.
I know, now I'm unmuted. I had asked Rabbi Julie, and then I asked who I hope would be our resident expert, Dana Klein, but she's not. If she knew or could find the Mormon cosmology around the issues of light and fire. And we know about the Mormon cosmology in terms of messengers, because I know that their main person they call a prophet, Joseph Smith, they've also referred to him as a messenger. That's all I knew. So Rabbi Julie actually took it on to try and learn a little bit more about the Mormon cosmology around this issue, because of the way in which we had talked before about, isn't this interesting with Mormons and Jews and how Lewis and Joe come together, and is it fated to happen, and is this meant to be, as Marianne thought that it might be, some form of foreshadowing for that was going to happen. Go.
Okay. Well, I just did scratch the surface. I'm sure there's so much more. But so Mormons do believe in angels. They're sometimes into it and sometimes not into it. But I think generally they do think of angels. There's ministering angels in the texts, and they have all their texts, both ancient texts and newer texts. And in modern times, they talk about angels as protecting saints on earth. And they're guardian angels, and they watch over and they protect. They are doing the will of a loving Father, God, who is looking after us. And angels bring knowledge, they bring priesthood, they bring comfort, they bring assurance. And there is this idea of guardian angels a little bit, and oftentimes they're relatives. So that's interesting with the other priors. I thought, oh, okay, that's something. And I think that's not coming from nowhere. And then very interesting to me was that on the top of every Mormon temple is a statue of the angel of light. And the angel of light is called Moroni. And it's heralding the second coming of Christ. And so anyway, and I could show a picture if you want, but I don't need to. But So I just thought that was really cool. Okay, so here we have this other connection that this very important angel, I would say, it's on every building, is an angel of light, right? And so, and then we have in this text so much going on with light and so much going on with angels, and the primary role of the angels in the Mormon, it seems like, is this very comforting, protecting, loving, and that seems very, very similar to this. Well, I would now going to go to El Malay Rachamim, this which
Hold
is,
on, because Dana wanted to say something.
oh, sorry,
Just
I
one-
didn't see. Go.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. Because I really don't know that much, but I lived in Utah for years and years. And so I've been to all the temples and all the towns I've lived in. And I do know about the Angel Moroni. I hadn't thought about that, but there is an Angel Moroni on top of every church. In fact, 2 blocks from here where I live, there's a Seventh-day Church of the Latter-day Saints, and there's an angel on top of that church. If you want to go see the Angel Moroni, it's right here in downtown Medford. But the big one is in Salt Lake, and it is pretty common knowledge. Like, if I know it, it's got to be common knowledge because I'm a Jew. Like, I don't know any of this stuff. But that the Angel Moroni is the angel of the second coming. And the big one is in Salt Lake City, and it's huge. And the cover of this play is a dead ringer for that angel. She's all in gold. She's got these big robes and she's holding her arm out. And that's exactly what the cover of the play looks like. So I don't know if whoever did that art was thinking of that, but that's the Angel Moroni. I mean, when I looked at that, that's exactly who I thought it was.
Cool.
That's all.
Thank you. Okay, Rabbi Julie, you were just about to launch into El Malay. Go for it.
Yeah, and so as you said, Emily, El Malay Rachamim is this profoundly beautiful, compassionate, embracing, referencing wings of the divine. Okay, angels have wings. This text, and it's a text actually of unification, a reabsorption of the soul into the divine entity, which is this Olam HaYichud, the whole idea that that other text is pulling forth. And then some of the text of El Malay Rachamim is really interesting in light of the idea of light. It's calling for the one who has died to be illuminated like the brilliance of the skies. Kizohar harakia mazhirim. And I just really wanted to lift that up, that there's this, again, we have light coming in. So clearly Kushner really knew a lot, and I'm just so impressed with his mind. And then in El Malay Rachamim, we also have Shekhinah, the divine feminine. So it's the wings of Shekhinah, the wings of the feminine. And again, and then this angel is feminine. And then we have this Mormon Moroni too, which I think can be, it's hard to, sometimes some images I saw were more feminine and some were more masculine, or non-sexed, but gendered. And anyway, so that's that connection. So I think that, and again, all of this is happening to Prior, and Prior just feels to me so sweet and so loving and so beautiful, and believes in that friendship. And there's just so much sweetness and love, and there's just this outpouring of compassion and love for him. And to me, he's representing, well, I mean, you said it so beautifully, Emily. I don't know if we want to go there yet, of just sort of like what, I mean, he is a prophet. He is being given messages, and I think he's really giving these, it's a combination of, or a amalgamation of both a Mormon and a Jewish coming together of mystical light, love, embrace, angelic, divine oneness. And he's being given a vision of it, and it's also coming in to comfort him. But what he represents in this play is so important. But I don't know if you want me to say that yet, Emily.
No, I just want you to comment on the notion of the Aleph.
Okay, good. Good. So the Aleph. So the Aleph, as Emily said, is the first letter of the alphabet. It's the first of the alphabet. It's also the first letter of the word echad, which means one. It's one of the primary words of the Shema, where we lift up the oneness of God. And that connects with that idea of yichud, olam ha-yichud, echad, the world of unity. So that Aleph often gets very much tied in with the concept of echad and oneness, and it means one. And additionally, the letter Aleph, it's has really made up of two letters. There's a vav, which is like a line on its side, and then there's a little yud on top and a little yud on the bottom. So if you the yud, vav, yud. And that's how the shape of it. It's a very interesting letter. And what they say is that the yud above represents God, and the yud below represents the Jewish people, and the vav in the middle is that which unites people to God. And it could be our faith in God is the vav, that we have faith in God, that's what connects us. Or it could be the Torah is the vav, because through Torah we find a connection to God. Yeah, so we just have this image again of the Jewish people being united with their God. And that's, again, this connects, and this is coming right after El Malay Rachamim, which is about unification with God. And then we have this Olam HaYichud swirling around in different parts of the play. And so I think the implication is, and then Emily, right? And Emily is saying, it's all going to be okay, don't worry. And then she starts saying El Malay Rachamim. It's just, I kind of get chills. It's just like this absolute affirmation of prior and all he represents in a larger context that Emily, I think, will speak about, and that what's being promised to him, what's being gifted to him, what he's being blessed with in this moment of his great vulnerability.
So the last words of the play, which I love, are greetings, prophet, the great work begins, the messenger has arrived. And I think that what Tony Kushner is meaning to say to us, for when this play was written in the 1990s, has a lot to do, and I'm going to get personal here, has a lot to do with what gay people lived through in the 1980s regarding the destruction, regarding the pandemic that was in our community. So by the time of when this play takes place in the 1980s, I think I had already known 15 or 16 people who had died, including two really very, very close friends of mine. And not only did I know all of these people who had died, but I also saw what it was doing to my community in terms of our fear of being near each other, touching each other, sex. I mean, so much of this rings true to me right now with COVID and has, but this was even in its own way more profound because it meant that you became very suspicious, or this would be true for my male gay friends. They became very suspicious of nearly everybody that they had ever been with because of the way in which the disease was at that point in time transmitted and the belief in it. And at the same time that was going on, and this harkens back to Roy Cohn's speech about, you people, you're essentially pissants, right? You can't even get a civil rights bill passed. There was this sort of dawning realization of how political the world was going to change, and Stonewall was not going to be enough. And the world needed to change, and it needed to change with political power. And within that, there became divisions within the gay community for how to change the world, essentially, and how to address the fact that the person in the White House was very similar to the person who was in the White House previously, essentially ignoring and pretending that this disease didn't exist. And I really think here that in terms of what Kushner is trying to tell us and why Pryor is the prophet and why he is so connected with light and love, it's not just because he sees the flaming olive. It's not just because he hears the issue of what's being said in Hebrew from Emily. It's not even just because he's got the ability to hear the angel, but it's because he can still love. He loves. He loves too much, maybe. He loves Lewis, but he's got love in his heart. And the other character that we see who loves, truly loves, is Harper. And that's why I think there's this shared hallucination scene where Harper and Pryor can meet each other on a different level because they both have love in their hearts and in their bodies. And when Harper says to Pryor, I think there's a part of you that is not sick, it's because she can see that. And just as her, you could say her delusion, her craziness is about bringing life into the world, so too Pryor is bringing life into the world. And when Tony Kushner wrote this play in the manner in which Andrew has described, is the gay community needed love. That's what we needed. And we needed to be able to love each other in an open, light-filled way. And I think that's why Tony Kushner ends it with Pryor being the prophet and then says, the great work begins, the messenger has arrived. And we can talk about what that message is. Is it political work? Is it personal work? Is it sexual work? What is the work? But whatever the work is, that work needs to be done with love. And if you think of the word ahava or any of the other words for love in Hebrew, they all have olives in them. In fact, frequently more than one olive. And I think that's what this play is. And I said this before about the play God of Vengeance when I said it changed my life, but this play also changed my life in that it exploded onto the New York stage and then throughout the country. It exploded the notion of complicated, not stereotypical, human, gay, believing people that come in all different stripes. And the reason for why Roy Cohn doesn't get El Malay Rachamim, and the reason for why he gets essentially written out of the kingdom of light and the kingdom of love, is because he is so filled with hate, so filled with hate. And Lewis, and here I'm channeling Marianne for just a moment, who thinks that Lewis is one step down from Roy. We don't know where Lewis ends on this. Lewis is a work in progress. Those are some of my thoughts before I'd like to hear from all of you about what your thoughts are now that we've gone through the play. Leland.
Yeah, I have some connected thoughts that were connected but need a little bit of backstory. So I think a lot of the great work that is mentioned in those last lines being almost the play itself in a meta way. And that connection, the backstory is that when Ethel Rosenberg is brought up, I immediately thought of the bell jar. Because, and I pulled out my copy to check, but the first line of the bell jar is, it was a queer, sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. And like, I immediately started thinking about a lot of connections between these two stories. And the main character of this book of the Bell Jar is, I don't think mentions that she's Jewish, but her name is Esther. But it's very much a story about New York, just like Angels in America is about New York. And also when Lewis says that like New York is like a city where everyone seems Jewish, and people say that all the time, I think, you know, thinking of New York as a character for its Jewish qualities, but also for its gay qualities. And there's a lot that we can consider. This is not really answers, it's more raising a lot more questions, but about New York and New York being a sickness, because like New York is a sickness for Esther in the Bell Jar, just as it is a sickness for all the characters in this story. Like, you know, Joe and Harper being these fish out of water in New York, and like that being a sickness to them, and furthering kind of their downfall. And also like the Bell Jar being such an illuminating work for like people to care about women and women's mental health and the way mental health is treated. And like the whole Rosenberg's thing is not just the first line of that book, it is like this foreshadowing for the end of it, spoilers, in which like Esther is like treated with like shock therapy, and like that book changed a lot of the ways that people viewed women and people viewed mental health. And it's almost like Angels in America has been this new way, this compassionate way of viewing gay people and viewing AIDS. And so I've kind of been sitting here making a lot of connections between those two. And I don't know if Kushner was thinking about the Bell Jar or had read the Bell Jar or any of that, but I think those are my big takeaways of like this being such a uniquely New York story. And also about the great work, maybe Kushner thinking of, you know, the play itself as the great work. And that seems egotistical, but I think maybe it speaks to the fact that he understood the importance of the work he was undertaking. Yeah.
Great. Martin.
Yeah, I'm struck by how Jews so far have been very unsympathetic characters. Granted, he's chosen the despicable Roy Cohn. He's chosen Ethel Rosenberg, who, with all the controversy about her, was guilty of espionage. The judge in the case was a Jew, even though he doesn't say that, who takes part in ex parte communication. And it's left to the non-Jews to express love, like Emily and like Belize.
I think it's an excellent point. Anybody else?
And yet, I just want to build on that, but interestingly, these Jewish words and ideas and imagery are coming in as a form of healing, in a form of loving compassion. So that's really interesting juxtaposition.
Anybody else? Dana.
So it's getting late for me to be terribly profound, but there are two things that I was thinking. One is that in that very long scene with Belize and Lewis, I just was so disgusted by Lewis. I feel like Lewis he's just gone down and down and down. And man, what a bunch of, pardon my language, bullshit, like liberal guilt bullshit. Like I can almost imagine Kushner just loving writing that stuff because it was just garbage. Just my own personal reaction. And then the second thing I thought, which is totally beyond any of this, my daughter is very, very interested in theater, and she's got a degree in theater, and her thing is production, backstage lighting is what she likes to do. And man, that last scene I would just love. I'd love to see it. I'd love to work on it. I would love, Think about what you'd have to do every single night. You would have to destroy the ceiling and rebuild it every night. Think about producing that play. Like, it would just be a remarkable experience. So, and I think we need to read the second one. I mean, we can't end here, right? Because it's just like the work has just begun.
Right, thus perestroika. Okay, I'm going to ask Andrew to end this for us by talking about the progeny of Angels in America, because I've spoken about sort of what it did for me personally, but I'm going to ask Andrew to talk just a little bit more than my own egotistical, narcissistic self, and talk a little bit more about the world of the theater in general.
Sure. First, I just want to say thank you to you, Emily, and to everybody. This has been so special for me to get to be connected to this community, and I'm so excited to visit and hang out with y'all and read some plays in person down the line. And it's been really special for me up here alone on an island in Maine to get to be connected to all of you for the last 4 weeks. So props for that. And Emily and I were talking on the phone the other day, and I was saying how I heard this thing on the radio because it was the 25th anniversary of Rent, which is another piece of theater that she and I have always been really bonded together about. We were both big Rent heads when I was in high school. And like Angels in America, it was a really important piece of art for me to understand my aunt better and to get to connect over. And so it was the 25th anniversary of the first preview of Rent, which was a really wild performance because Jonathan Larson, who wrote that show, died unexpectedly the night before the first preview. And they had all these great interviews with cast members and stage management and everybody involved in the production, trying to decide what to do, getting this news, and then coming to the theater and deciding that the show must go on. So they did the first preview as a staged reading. But by the time they got to the end of the first act, if you know that show, there's a really big number at the end of Act 1 called La Vie Bohème. And so they described this kind of raucous scene that came about of people getting up on the table and dancing and kind of finding each other in this beautiful expression of joy and honoring his life in that way. And so Em was talking about Prior and about the Hebrew in the play and these ideas of light and love and what they represent. And I was thinking about Rent as the sort of next major landmark in the theater. It came out in '96, so 5 years after Millennium approaches, and deals with some similar subjects. And I think is an inheritor of Angels in a way that put some of these themes on a really big stage. And then, like me, it brought me into the theater and into musical theater in a whole other way. And it comes to a similar conclusion in some ways. I'm thinking about this last year that we all just worked our way through together, and finding us here together tonight to get to do this work together. And Rent asks the question, how do we measure a year in the life? And it comes to the same conclusion. We measure in love. And I thought that was a beautiful tie, that both of these pieces deeply recognize the value and the power of the expression of love and considering what love means in our lives and how we can present that to each other.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. That's it. Thank you all very much for participating. We'll see you at Perestroika so that we can follow what Leland said and see what the great work is.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Andrew, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.